Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like a fraud? Do you walk into a room and wonder if anyone truly sees you, or if you're just another ghost passing through? How many years have you spent chasing approval, mistaking attention for power, mistaking applause for love? And deep down, do you ever fear that without validation, you are nothing? This is the silent wound most men carry. Not weakness, not lack of effort, but a hunger to be recognized, to be admired, to be chosen. And that hunger is exactly what chains you. Because while you crave applause, someone else is studying your silence. While you beg to be seen, someone else is learning how to disappear. And in this brutal world, visibility is not safety. It's vulnerability. The crowd doesn't protect you. The crowd devours you. The awakening begins here the moment you realize goodness will not save you. Charm will not crown you, and admiration will not keep you standing when the storm comes. Power is born when you stop asking to be loved and start preparing to be untouchable. If these words cut into you, don't run, stay. This is only the first chapter. Subscribe now, because the truths ahead are darker, sharper, and far more dangerous than anything you've been told. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and saw yourself not the version your boss approves of, not the image your friends respect, not the mask your partner tolerates, but you? Or have you been living as a reflection of other people's desires, strong when they want you strong, soft when they need you soft, smiling when you're breaking inside, and every time they withhold approval, you collapse? This is the prison no one talks about. Not iron bars, but the mirror. You think you're free, but every move you make is chained to the question, will they like me? It's why so many men never lead. They perform. It's why so many never find peace. They're addicted to applause. Here's the brutal truth: the mirror doesn't show you who you are. It shows you who the world wants you to be. And if you never smash that reflection, you'll spend your entire life chasing shadows. But the man who dares to break the mirror, he may lose the crowd, he may lose their praise, but he gains something far greater himself. If this cut deep, don't turn away. This is only the beginning of your awakening. Subscribe now, because the next chapter will show you what the crowd really is, and why their love is the most dangerous drug of all. Have you ever noticed how fast they forget you? One day they're clapping for you, the next day they can't even remember your name. How many times have you worked yourself to the bone only to be replaced, ignored, discarded the moment you stop entertaining them, and still you keep performing, hoping this time finally it will be enough? This is the sickness of the crowd. They don't love you. They love the illusion you create for them. They cheer for the mask, not the man. And when the mask slips, they vanish. Think about it. The same crowd that cheers for a hero today will celebrate his downfall tomorrow. They're not loyal. They're hungry. Hungry for drama, hungry for spectacle, hungry for the next distraction. And if you tie your worth to their applause, you'll die 1,000 silent deaths every time they turn away. Here's the twist. No one tells you the crowd's love is not a gift. It's a leash. It tightens every time you smile for their approval. It chokes you every time you choose what's popular instead of what's powerful. The only way forward is brutal. Stop performing. Let the crowd starve. Only then will you learn the rarest freedom, a life not dependent on their noise. If these words hit you, stay. Because the next chapter reveals the first weapon of true power: silence. Subscribe now so you don't miss what comes next. How many times have you explained yourself only to feel smaller after every word? How often have you argued, shouted, defended your point, yet still walked away defeated? Do you ever feel that no matter how much you talk, nobody truly listens? That's the secret pain most men carry. They believe words prove strength when in reality words reveal weakness. The more you speak, the more you give away your fear, your insecurity, your hunger to be right. And the crowd feeds on it. But then comes the first silence. The moment you refuse to explain. The moment you let the insult hang in the air unanswered. The moment you smile at provocation and say nothing. At first they laugh. They think you're weak. But slowly the room shifts. Your silence grows heavier than their noise. Every second you withhold words, their curiosity sharpens, their respect deepens, their fear begins. Here's the twist. Silence isn't absence. Silence is presence multiplied. It forces people to fill the void with their own imagination, and that imagination is always louder than your defense. The man who controls silence controls the room. Because while others waste breath proving themselves, he builds mystery, and mystery breeds power. If this truth struck you, don't ignore it. This is just the beginning of the weapons you've never been taught. Subscribe now because the next chapter will reveal when to roar like the lion. How many times have you been mocked in public and felt the blood boiling in your veins, the desperate urge to shout, to defend, to prove you're not weak? How many times have you raised your voice only to walk away, humiliated knowing no one took you seriously? That's the secret wound of men today. They confuse loudness with power. They believe yelling makes them strong when in truth constant noise makes them forgettable. A barking dog may scare children, but no one fears it for long. Here's the lesson: the lion doesn't roar every moment. He waits, silent, watching, letting others underestimate him. And when he finally opens his mouth, the ground trembles. One roar shatters the room more than 1,000 screams. The twist: respect doesn't come from volume, it comes from restraint. The man who rarely speaks but times his words like a blade commands more than the man who never shuts up. Because power is not in what you say, it's in the weight behind it. So the next time they insult you, stay silent. And when the moment is perfect, speak just one line and watch the crowd fall quiet. If this struck you, don't leave now. This series is building step by step into a playbook of real power. Subscribe because the next chapter will reveal the fox's smile and why cunning beats strength. Have you ever wondered why your hard work goes unnoticed? Why the loudest man in the room still loses to the quiet manipulator in the corner? Why brute strength, no matter how impressive, is never enough to secure the throne? Here's the silent pain most men ignore. Force creates resistance. Push too hard and people push back. Show too much muscle and they gather to bring you down. But the fox doesn't push. He smiles. And while others relax around that smile, he's already collecting their secrets. This is the lesson Machiavelli whispered centuries ago. A ruler must be both lion and fox. The lion frightens, the fox deceives. One without the other is a doomed strategy. Here's the twist: your enemy won't always come at you with swords. Sometimes they come with flattery, with charm, with games. And if all you know is force, you'll be blindsided. But with the fox's smile, calm, cunning, disarming, you win before the battle begins. Because while they underestimate you, you are already 2 steps ahead. So learn to smile when you're studying. Laugh while you're memorizing their weakness. Charm while you sharpen your blade. That is how cunning defeats brute strength. If this truth unsettled you, good. Because the next chapter will test what you've learned, a lesson in betrayal. Subscribe now so you don't miss when loyalty turns to knives. Who stabbed you first, your enemy or the friend you trusted the most, who walked away when you needed them, smiling as if they'd never promised loyalty? How many times have you told yourself this time it's different, only to watch the knife slide between your ribs again? This is the silent pain men carry. Betrayal always feels personal, but it's not. It's inevitable. Because loyalty is fragile, temptation is strong. And when pressure comes, even the closest ally may sell you for comfort or survival. The weak man cries about it. The powerful man prepares for it. Here's the twist. Betrayal is not an accident, it's a test. Every time someone turns on you, they reveal their true value. And instead of breaking you, it arms you with clarity. You now know who belongs at your table and who deserves to be locked outside the gates. Powerful men don't avoid betrayal, they anticipate it. They share just enough information to see who leaks it. They promise just enough trust to see who breaks it. And when the knife finally comes, they don't collapse. They catch the hand that holds it. So stop wishing for loyalty that never breaks. Start building strength that betrayal cannot shatter. If this struck you, don't stop here. The next chapter will take you into the feast of masks where everyone smiles but no one is real. Subscribe now because you can't afford to miss what's behind the mask. How many fake smiles have you endured just to keep the peace? How many times have you nodded at a lie, laughed at a joke you hated, or clapped for someone you secretly despised? And tell me, when was the last time anyone in your life actually saw you? Not the mask you put on to survive. This is the silent suffocation men live with. Every room is a theater, every handshake rehearsed, every compliment poisoned. The world tells you to play along or be cast out. And so you perform day after day until you start to forget who you were before the mask. Here's the truth. Masks aren't harmless. They're currency. They buy influence. They protect weakness. They hide ambition. And if you can't see through them, you will always be the fool applauding someone else's act. But here's the twist. Sometimes you need your own mask. Not to deceive, but to survive. Not every truth should be exposed. The wise man learns which parts of himself to reveal and which to guard in silence. Because when you rip off your mask too soon, the crowd doesn't cheer. They recoil. So stop being blinded by the show. Learn to study the stage, see the masks for what they are, and use them when the game demands it. If these words hit, you don't leave now. The next chapter takes you even deeper to face the enemy within. Subscribe now, because the most dangerous mask is the one you wear for yourself. How many times have you told yourself the world is against you when deep down you knew it was you who sabotaged your own rise? How many opportunities have you lost because you couldn't silence your pride, your fear, your hunger to be seen? And how many nights have you replayed the same mistakes, blaming others while knowing it was your weakness that opened the door? Here's the truth. Most men refuse to face. The deadliest enemy isn't the rival at work, the boss who overlooked you, or the friend who betrayed you. The deadliest enemy is the one in the mirror. Your need to be liked, your fear of being alone, your addiction to validation. Here's the twist: until you master the enemy within, every external victory will collapse. You'll rise fast and fall faster. Because no crown, no title, no respect can survive a man who secretly hates his own reflection. But once you turn inward, once you confront that enemy and break his grip, something rare happens. You stop playing the victim. You stop begging for recognition. You stop sabotaging yourself. And only then do you become truly dangerous. If these words struck you, don't run. The next chapter reveals the hidden dagger, the weapon you carry, not in your hand but in your presence. Subscribe now so you don't miss how power is born in potential, not performance. How many times have you over-explained your strength hoping they'd respect you? How many times have you shown your every card only to realize they used that knowledge to beat you? How many times have you fought battles that didn't matter just to prove you weren't weak, yet still walked away feeling smaller? This is the secret humiliation of most men. They think power comes from constant display. They flex, they brag, they strike first. But the more you reveal, the more predictable you become. And predictability is death in the game of power. Here's the truth. Real strength doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. The most dangerous man in the room isn't the one shouting, but the one who sits quietly because everyone wonders what he's capable of. That's the hidden dagger. You don't show it. You don't wave it around. You let them feel it in your presence. You let silence sharpen it. You let restraint make it heavier than steel. Here's the twist: you don't gain respect by swinging wildly. You gain it by holding back, by making people fear what you could do if you chose. So stop proving yourself. Start carrying the dagger within, and watch how the world changes when they realize you're dangerous even without moving a muscle. If this cut into you, stay. Because the next chapter will teach you the whisper, the weapon even softer than silence. Subscribe now so you don't miss the lesson that turns a murmur into command. How many times have you raised your voice only to be ignored? How many times have you shouted in anger, desperate to be respected, and instead looked like a fool? How often have you felt that the louder you get, the less anyone takes you seriously? This is the hidden frustration of countless men, mistaking volume for authority. The truth: noise is cheap. Anyone can scream. Anyone can rant. But authority isn't measured by decibels, it's measured by weight. And weight is created by restraint. Here's the twist. The most powerful voice in the room is not the one that echoes the loudest. It's the one spoken so quietly that everyone has to lean in to hear it. A whisper forces silence. A whisper bends attention. A whisper makes men hold their breath waiting for your next word. The lion roars to terrify, but the sovereign whispers to control. Because the man who speaks rarely softly, deliberately, he owns the room without ever straining his throat. So stop screaming to be heard. Start speaking like every word is gold. Whisper when it matters and watch the noise collapse into silence around you. If this truth hit you, don't stop here. The next chapter will test your endurance with isolation, where every weak man breaks. Subscribe now, because the path to power only gets darker from here. How many nights have you feared being alone? How many times have you stayed in toxic circles, fake friendships, dead-end relationships, just to avoid the silence? How often do you feel like if no one calls, no one texts, no one notices you, you don't even exist? That's the hidden wound of men today. They crave belonging so badly that they sell their freedom for company. They fear solitude more than they fear weakness. And in that fear, they chain themselves to people who drain them, who mock them, who secretly hope they never rise. Here's the brutal truth. Isolation is not your enemy. It is your trial. It strips away the noise, the fake smiles, the applause. It leaves you with only one question. Can you stand your own company? Most can't. They break. They run back to the crowd, desperate for distraction. But the man who survives isolation, the man who learns to sit in silence without collapsing, he becomes untouchable. Because if loneliness can't break him, nothing else can. Here's the twist. The ability to stand alone is the foundation of commanding others. The man who needs no one is the man others can't control. So don't fear the empty room. Embrace it. It's not exile, it's initiation. If this truth hit you, stay with me. The next chapter reveals how humiliation, if endured wisely, can be transformed into fuel for dominance. Subscribe now, because you don't want to miss the fire that comes next. When was the last time you were laughed at in public? When was the last time someone insulted you in front of others and you felt your face burn your chest, tighten your pride collapse? How many nights have you replayed those moments, wishing you had said the perfect line, wishing you had crushed them, instead of standing there in silence? This is the silent torment men live with. Humiliation feels like death. It makes you feel small, exposed, powerless. But here's the truth. Humiliation doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. Most men panic when it comes. They lash out, they scream, they fight blindly, and in doing so they prove their weakness. But the rare man, the disciplined man, endures humiliation like fire. He lets it burn, but he does not break. And when the smoke clears, he stands taller, not because he avoided the fire, but because he walked through it without flinching. Here's the twist. Humiliation is a weapon only if you believe it. When you stop reacting, the insult loses its power, and the crowd turns against the one who tried to shame you. What was meant to break you becomes proof you cannot be broken. So don't run from humiliation. Use it. Let it harden you, sharpen you, fuel you. Because the man who survives public shame without folding is a man no one can control. If this truth burned you good, the next chapter will take you deeper into the chessboard of power, where every move is life or death. Subscribe now, because the game is only beginning. How many times have you rushed into a fight just to regret it later? How many times have you jumped at the first opportunity only to realize you sacrificed something far greater down the road? How often have you celebrated a small win only to watch it crumble into a bigger defeat? This is the hidden frustration of men who live only for the moment. They mistake speed for strategy. They think the first strike guarantees victory, when in truth, it often guarantees disaster. Life is not a brawl. Life is a chessboard, and every move you make either strengthens your position or exposes your weakness. Here's the twist. The greatest victories don't come from attacking first. They come from waiting, from watching, from letting others show their hands while you quietly build your advantage. The fool brags about his next move. The strategist hides his plan until the board is already his. The man who plays for quick wins dies by them. But the man who plays the long game, who values position over impulse, he becomes untouchable. So stop rushing. Stop lunging for scraps. Start thinking like a strategist. Because the one who owns the board doesn't need to shout his victory. He only needs to close the trap. If this truth challenged you, good. Because the next chapter will reveal the shadow, the art of vanishing from the stage to make your presence impossible to ignore. Subscribe now, because disappearing is sometimes the most powerful move of all. How many times have you felt invisible in a room? How many times have you spoken and been ignored, walked in and gone unnoticed, left and no one cared? And how many nights have you cursed yourself for not shining brighter, for not being the man they couldn't forget? This is the hidden wound of men. In a loud world, they believe invisibility is weakness. They think power belongs to the loudest voice, the flashiest presence, the man who hogs the spotlight. But here's the truth. Visibility is vulnerability. The man everyone sees is the man everyone targets. The man in the shadows, the one they underestimate, is the man who survives. Here's the twist: absence can be louder than presence. When you withdraw at the right moment, people notice. When you leave the table, they talk about you. When you disappear, your value multiplies, because mystery breeds fear, and fear breeds respect. The shadow is not exile, it's strategy. It's choosing when to appear, when to vanish, and when to let your silence echo louder than any speech. The man who learns to move like a shadow cannot be cornered, because no one ever knows where he truly is. So stop begging to be seen. Start mastering the art of disappearing. Because in a world obsessed with noise, nothing is more terrifying than a man who controls his presence. If this truth unsettled you, good. The final chapter will reveal the birth of power, the moment silence, restraint, and shadow become sovereignty. Subscribe now, because the end of this path is only the beginning of real dominance. How many years have you wasted chasing recognition only to end up forgotten? How many scars from betrayal still burn in your chest? How many humiliations, sleepless nights, and empty victories have you carried, thinking one more applause, one more title, one more win would finally make you powerful, and yet here you are, still restless, still unsatisfied, still caged. This is the silent tragedy of most men. They think power comes from the outside, from wealth, from women, from followers, from fear. But here's the truth. External power always collapses when the inner man is weak. The twist is brutal. Real power is born in silence. It's born when you endure humiliation without folding. It's born when you turn betrayal into clarity. It's born when you stop begging to be seen and start moving like a shadow. It's born when you whisper, and the room obeys, when you roar once, and the ground shakes when your dagger is hidden, but everyone feels its weight. This is sovereignty, the man who no longer performs, no longer pleads, no longer pretends. He doesn't need to be loved. He doesn't need to be feared. He only needs to be in control. That is the birth of power, not applause, not crowns, not validation, but mastery over the self, and through that mastery over everything else. If you've made it here, it means part of you is ready. Write it in the comments, I master my shadow. And subscribe, because Book 2 will take you beyond birth into empire.